All right, good morning. Today is Thursday, May 12th. This is a lesson for KAP. We do have a couple more lessons for our KAP students, but it's only like one or two. Today, we've actually learned most of today's lesson. We're just adding on to a previous lesson. So to start off, we should have this notes page. And I want to see, I'm going to give y'all a couple minutes to fill in as much of this front page, except for this, there's a picture under here. Leave everything, or try and fill in as much of this page as possible, leaving this blank. Okay. So again, pause and play, and we'll fill in this together. All right. Before we do that, let's just review volume. We did volume of rectangular prisms before, and now we're going to talk about triangular prisms, so it's just adding on to it. So talking about first volume. Volume, we're trying to find the amount of space inside of a shape. So when we were looking at rectangular prisms, instead of sitting there and counting every single like cube that would go in there, we first start with saying, okay, let's find the area of this. When it was a rectangular prism, we would do like, let me draw a picture real quick. Beautiful picture. Okay, so when we were finding the volume of the rectangular prism, we first said, okay, let's find the area of the base. Let's say that that area is 20. And then we said, when we're finding volume, we're basically taking that same area and we're stacking it on top and on top and on top until you get the volume. So you take the area of the base and then we multiply it by its height, and that gives us how much volume is in the side, the shape. So how could we find out how many cubes covered the entire base of this shape? Again, we wouldn't do base times height because this shape is a triangle on the bottom. So what we would do is we don't count like these partial squares or anything like that. We find the area of the base by doing 1/2 of base times height. We find the area of the triangle. Okay. Then if I wanted to say, okay, there's 7 layers to this shape, we would then multiply that area times the height to find the volume. Okay, so something else I want to sort of preface, this shape right here, this is a triangular prism. When we look at the star chart for prisms, there's only one formula, whether it's a triangular prism or a rectangular prism. Now, and I don't want us to be confused with a pyramid. Pyramid. For a pyramid, I'm going to draw one real quick. It's going to be the most beautiful pyramid you've ever seen. Okay, so the difference between a prism, whether it's rectangular or triangular, versus a pyramid is what? Take a little look-see. Okay, for a prism, if you remember the definition of a prism, it's a 3D shape that has 2 parallel bases. So in a triangular prism, those parallel bases are the 2 triangles. In a rectangular prism, the 2 rectangles are the parallel bases. Compare that to a pyramid. With the pyramid, this is a rectangular pyramid, rectangular. With a pyramid, they only have one base, okay? Across from that base is just a point, okay? So we're just looking at prisms today. For a prism, it has 2 parallel bases, and on the star chart, again, there's not a different formula for each of these shapes. For a prism, all it says is the volume is equal to big B times H. Now, if you remember, big B is talking about that area of the base, whether it's a rectangle or a triangle, and then we multiply it by that height of the prism. Okay, so that's sort of what we're going to be looking at today. So going through what should already be filled in, again, copying this down and labeling what each of these letters mean. Big B, capital B, is talking about the area of the base shape. Those bases always have to be parallel. Okay, so we see that here with this beautiful triangular prism. Now, we gave you this one as well because we want to take note. The bases aren't always going to be on the bottom. Okay, sometimes the prism falls over. In this, if we try to call this part, the rectangle, the base, that it doesn't have anything that's parallel to it. What's parallel is this line. So the bases have to be parallel, so therefore the bases of this shape are still going to be the triangles. It's just sort of tilted over. Okay, so you first find the area of that base, and then you multiply it by the height of the prism. A way you can think of the height, especially when it comes to triangular prisms, the height would be this length right here. It's what's connecting the two bases. All right, pause as you need to fill in this stuff. Again, hopefully we had most of this. What makes something a prism is that it's a 3D shape with two parallel bases. Those two bases are also congruent figures. They are the same, the bottom and the top and the bottom, they're congruent. For a rectangular prism, those congruent shapes are rectangles. In a triangular prism, it will always be the triangles are the bases. Again, with volume, we're finding the space, and we use cubic units to measure that. For this first problem, again, the whole shape is a rectangular prism, and the formula to find the volume is equal to big BH. We want to break it down, just focusing first on the area of the base. It's always in a rectangular prism, it'll be the bottom and the top unless they otherwise specify. So in this case, that shape is a rectangle. I put that big B to find the area of the base. It would be base times height. You could have also said that A is equal to BH. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so starting with the area of the base formula, substituting in 5 by 10 and getting a total of 50 square meters. And then I'm going to plug that into the volume formula. That area of the base was 50. We solved for it. And then the height, the piece that connects the two bases, is 4. Okay, most people probably got that just fine. Okay, but let's look at this one together. This whole shape is called a triangular prism. And as we mentioned, it has the same exact formula. V is equal to big BH. Where things differ is the big B, that area of the base. In this shape, my base shape is going to be the triangle because it's going to be parallel to this other triangle. Now, for the formula for just a triangle, for the area of the base, again, you can put A, but to find the area of a triangle, we don't do base times height, we do 1/2 of base height. So that's where there's a bit of a difference between these two shapes. Okay, so chunking it is very helpful. Big B is 1/2 BH. Let's focus on that triangle. What is the base and height of just the triangle? It's going to be 6 and 4. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of this 1/2. I'm going to do 1/2 of 6. That gives me 3. Therefore, the area of the base is 12 square inches. Again, you could have done 1/2 of 4 and still end up with that. So that is that bottom layer. Okay, now I'm going to substitute that into the volume formula. Volume is equal to 12. That's the area of the base. And again, the height is talking about what's connecting those two bases. If it helps you, think of this triangular prism and stand it up so that it's sitting on its base. You'll see that 12 is talking about the height of that prism. Okay, so that's going to be times 12. The volume of the whole thing is going to be 144 cubic inches. Okay, so only big difference is this right here. I will say for a rectangular prism, if you use length times width times height, technically that's still the same. Depending on teacher, they might allow that, might not. But you cannot use this formula for a triangular prism. I know we all agree on that. So I would use, I just prefer to use this one because one, it's the one on the star chart, and it's the one that your teachers are probably going to use most often. So what we are going to do, go ahead and try these next two problems on your own. Pause and then play when you're ready. All right, so there's that first one. And then let's do the second one together. So again, this is a triangular prism. The area of the base is going to be the area of this triangle. So gotta be careful. Again, that formula is 1/2 of base times height. I'm just looking at the triangle. Let's substitute in. The base and the height of my triangle are going to be 14 and 5. That's just the triangle, the base length of the triangle and the height of the triangle. 1/2 of 14, I'm going to go ahead and do a 7. So the area of that triangle is 35. Or you can think of the area of this is 35. Now, what was thrown in a few people, when I plug that in, base height, volume is equal to the area of the base, again, was 35. We are looking for now the height of the prism. Again, back on this page, the height of the prism is what's connecting those two bases. So that is going to be 34. It's a little weird, and this is why we take time to adjust. This height is talking about the triangle. This height is talking about the prism. We go from a 2D to a 3D shape. So if you miss that, just fix it now. And again, it's talking about the height of the prism itself. How tall are we stacking those 35, 35, 35, 35? It's going to be 34. When you multiply that out, I've already done the work. It is going to be 1190 meters cubed. Okay, so the only thing to pay attention when I'm finding the area of the base, that I'm doing 1/2 of base height. And then when I'm plugging it into the volume formula, that the height is talking about the connection between the two bases. We have two little activities that you're going to work on. First, you're going to work on a scavenger hunt. If you're at home, you can pull this activity up on Canvas. You can just like record there's no question numbers, but you can record, oh, I'm starting on the B problem. You're going to do your FSS, your formula substitute solve for that whole problem, and your answer is going to be on the next problem. So let's say that the bats came next. Okay, then you do your FSS. Pay attention to the word problems, because it's not just find the volume, find the volume. You actually have to read it. Crazy. Okay. Once you do that, you can check the key on Canvas, and then your homework tonight is going to be to finish the remaining, I think it's 6 problems. So nothing too crazy. Again, if you have questions, please come into tutorials. We have them Friday morning. Have a great evening.